Hello, how's it going everyone? So in this video, we're going to cover search campaigns, how we like to set them up, and this is standard search. We'll talk more about the actual ad copy in a later video, and we might even cover a little bit about dynamic search ads too in a later video. But anyways, let's jump right into it. So when you create a campaign, so when you hit that little plus icon, if your view doesn't look like this, there'll be a section up here, maybe it looks like appearance or add into advanced mode. And it'll give you all the options to sort of create all these campaigns. But anyways, jumping into it right away, a lot of people will say, oh, I want to focus on sales, so I'm going to click the sales. But the reality is, whenever you select one of these, it reduces your options in the next portion. So the majority of marketers that I know, especially professional marketers, don't click any of these. They only click the create a campaign without goals guidance because it gives them the most options. Now there is a little bit of a caveat with a local performance max, but that's a whole nother conversation there. So anyways, we're going to create a campaign without goals guidance, and then it gives us all these options here: search, performance max, display, shopping, demand gen, smart, app, and video. We want to go with search because it's a search tutorial. And then here, this might not show any at all. This is just sort of a reminder that if you don't have any of these set up, to go and set them up in your tools and settings. These are conversion actions. Not a huge deal here, but if you want to add a goal, you can. Meaning that, not a huge deal to select these right away. You can do that later. Same with this. Select results you want to get from this campaign. We can skip that, totally fine. I'm going to name this search. I'll just name this test. Cool. And let's see, I'm actually going to start a new. Cool. So that's just because I created a draft earlier. So anyways, going to the bidding section here, we'll see that we have conversions, conversion value, clicks, and impression share. You'll notice that we don't have that many options for bid strategy, so we'll get to that in a little bit later. So the two main bid strategies I like to use, and this is mainly just based on my experience, is max conversions, as well as manual CPC or enhanced, manual CPC, I guess. So 2.5 or 3, I guess you could technically say. I use those the most, just because I've gotten the best results from them. However, that's not to say that you can't from others. It's just a likelihood of success. That's sort of how I like to think about, SOPs. This is not really an SOP. It's more of there's an 80% chance this is going to work, so let's try this first kind of mentality. So anyways, I'm going to start with conversions, and you might be asking, well, why aren't you setting a target cost per acquisition? So the biggest issue that I see in a lot of accounts, especially with Google, is people are so focused on CPA and attribution that they forget that they're essentially targeting warm users that have already converted or have, already seen another ad and they're just converting further down the funnel, which is fine, but we can't really scale that. So when we set a target CPA, we're restricting our overall prospecting to find new users unless we set the target CPA way above our goals or way above what it currently can get us. And then that actually means it'll start prospecting out further. I just like to set it on max conversions without a target CPA to kind of avoid that whole issue. But I just want to point that out, that max conversions will prospect more than target CPA, which means that max conversions is a lot more scalable than target CPA. And it's more likely to target cold traffic versus warm traffic. There's some marketers that say that conversion-based is only going to target warm traffic. It is more likely going to target warm traffic because they're showing signals. However, since this is a search campaign, we can kind of filter out the search terms and have more control over the audience. So we don't really have to worry about that too much here. So anyways, I'm going to set this on conversions. We're going to hit next. Now, I always turn off the display network, this is 100% of the time. The reason for that is because, number one, this is a search campaign. We're not running a display campaign. We want to have proper segmentation so we know if something's working. We know that it's either search or it's either display, cold, warm, whatever the case may be, so we have accurate targets to then change. If we have things blended together too much, then it muddies the water and we can't really tell what's going on. And if we change something, we don't know if it's going to jump to the other. And so that's, another reason why I don't run performance max campaigns. And it's worked out really well. So anyways, we turn off the display network. And then when I go into the network settings here, we'll see search network. Now, this just essentially means anyone that is with a, any search engine that is partnered with Google, Google can then send traffic to. And so what that means is that if you have this on, your search results or your search campaign is going to show up in other search platforms. So, or search tools, whatever you want to call it. So what I like to do personally is I want to go where Google has the most data, which tends to be turning this off. And the reason why I want to do that is because the audience is going to be more known and it's going to be able to build on that audience a lot faster versus if I were to put on the search network, then it's not going to build as fast and the data is obviously going to be a little bit more skewed. Majority of accounts that I have that have scaled to a certain point, meaning that they've sort of, I guess, used up the Google network. I've turned on search network and I maybe get like a 5%, 10% lift. It kind of just depends. And so I see search network as more of a later play than an early on play. However, something that you should know is search network CPCs are cheaper typically than Google Chrome CPCs or Google search CPCs. And so the good news about that is if you're like, hey, these CPCs are really high on these other platforms, I'm gonna run a manual bid strategy and bid low, then you want to turn on the search network so you can have opportunity to show up first on a way lower cost, medium itself. So I'm gonna start with it off. We can always turn it back on in the future, totally fine. Now going to locations, pretty self-explanatory. Target the area that you want. I'm just going to select United States. And then over here it says presence or interest versus presence. So this is and it's sad to say, and we're talking, this happens on like $100,000 a month clients, like it's crazy. People still sometimes select presence or interest. And it's by accident. I understand that most of the time, but there are a lot of people that don't understand this still. And so I'm just going to explain it for the sake of, this is a tutorial. So presence or interest essentially means that anyone that shows interest in the United States or is present in the United States is going to get targeted. So you can have someone over in Timbuktu that likes the United States or is, looking and is typing in things that typically are in the United States, something of the nature. It really opens up the horizons of what Google can target. Then they'll see the ad. So if you have you're selling a product in the United States and then you see a lot of your clicks are coming from out of the country, look at the setting, double check it, make sure that it's on presence, because presence is essentially people that are just in the targeted locations that you're looking at. Interest is more geared towards I would say hotels or like travel. So if you're curious as to why that's even a thing, it's more so just because of that, right? So if you're looking at someone that's interested in coming to the United States, they're looking for hotels, then we obviously want to show them this ad. So yeah. Now another thing as well here, and this is not a huge deal for search. I like to just do the native language that I'm going after. Now, sometimes, we're in the United States, sometimes we'll add Spanish in, just kind of depends. But the biggest thing with this is that it's targeting keywords. So it's going to build off of those keywords with very similar words in the other language if you were to select this to all languages. And so totally up to you on this, but yeah, all languages or the language that you're targeting is probably going to be a safe bet for search. So you can use all languages for this and you'll still be okay. You might get some, Spanish that seeps in the cracks here in the United States, which is totally fine. Just kind of depends on, what you want for your ad campaign itself. Now, audience segments. Now, this is kind of a weird area for search, and there's a lot of optimization potential for, strategy potential for this. I typically don't run audience segments because it is like overlapping with search, because it really inflates the CPCs and you run into issues where, instead of paying $5 for someone that showed interest, I'm paying like $20 because they fit inside the audience that you selected. Our goal typically when we run campaigns is to get the users to the site for the cheapest cost and then get a sale for the cheapest cost. And so I could see how this could be something where, if you have a brand new account and that your user's in that audience, then you target it, okay, but I wouldn't leave this on for a long period of time unless you're doing, for example, a retargeting campaign of some sort. So keep that in mind when you do audience segments. Just in general, it's a lot cheaper to build an audience off of your conversion data than to actually target an audience and then build an audience off your conversion data. So even though the audience might be a little bit more cold, it's just something to keep in mind when you do this. So with search, like I said, I don't typically do audience segments unless it's a remarketing campaign. However, there's potential there for some weird strategies. So anyways, broad match keywords. I want to use, whatever keyword match type I want. So this just allows me more freedom to pick my keyword match type. Automatically created assets. I like this off as well. And the reason for that is because I want to have control of what my users are seeing or what my potential customers are seeing. Because then it allows me to do controlled tests and I don't have as many variables that kind of skew the data and make things more confusing. So it kind of goes back to the point of segmentation when it comes to campaigns, so you know what lever is working and what lever is not working, right? Because that's our role as ad managers, is to track overall where can we push more to get more out of our system that we're building for the clients. So anyways, I'm going into this section down here, more settings. Now ad rotation, I typically leave this on optimize, just because you can still test multiple ads with responsive search ads, but we'll talk more about this in another video. Just putting that out there, as I typically have this on optimize. Start and end dates. I typically, I never really do this unless we're doing like a sale. I always leave it on none, and then whatever start date that you have it at. I manage it based on daily budget, not on a set budget for a targeted amount of time, because what happens is if you're warm up a campaign, it ends and then everything breaks. You're like, what the heck? I have to restart this learning process all over again. So I like to have more control over when it ends on a day-to-day basis versus having it be forced to end on a certain day. And I just find that the budget gets split out a lot nicer. If you have it within this, within a certain date range, like I go here and I select from the 30th to, let's say like the 31st, so the end date. Then we're looking at a scenario where it might not spend the budget for the first 15 days, and then the last 15 days it just shoots the budget out there. So it's very hard to optimize around that. So I don't know any agency that really only does start and end dates. I always use day to day. Cool. All right. So ad schedule. This is also going to be a case by case basis. So general rule of thumb is I don't have an ad schedule. Now, if I were to put on an ad schedule, then that would most likely be for a lead generation client. Because I will say oh, you don't want calls for this time, then I'll tell the algorithm, okay, don't, only give me calls or only give me lead form fill outs or only, show the ad from this time to this time because the team's in office and they can respond and reply. That I would say is probably the only reason why I would start that. Now we'll find out as campaigns build more data that you can actually say, hey, for example, I know on Sundays that no one buys my product, no one does, and I'm still spending budget on Sundays and I just don't know why. Now there is some cases where maybe Sundays they're warming up a user and then they convert on let's say your busy day is Monday, then they convert on Monday, but that's something to test. So what I would do for that is obviously just pause the Sunday day, so you go from Monday all the way to Saturday. Selected, and then see how that affects your overall top line numbers, and then kind of go from there. So that would be a way that I would adjust the ad schedule, but yeah, case by case basis. And keep in mind that this ad schedule is based off of the account time zone. So if the account is in, let's say, for example, this one's in Pacific time, but let's say that the actual business is Eastern time, then just keep that in mind of, okay, if I set it at this time, just know that it's going to be 3 hours behind what their actual time is. So there's a very small caveat. I've seen that happen in a couple accounts where they have that mixed up. And the issue and the sad part about this is that if, for example, you're in Pacific time and your business is not in Pacific time, you can't change this. This is a permanent setting. You're not allowed to change this once Google has it set up, because if you were to change it, it would skew all the data in the account and it would mess everything up. At least that's my assumption. So anyways, jumping over to more settings again, campaign URL options. Now this is just for UTM parameters. We'll probably talk more about this in another video. UTM parameters are mainly used for third-party tracking. So GA4, or if you have for example, I don't know, Go High Level or a third-party CRM tool that needs to pull data from just a URL itself, then you can set up tracking templates from here. But yeah, so anyways, the other thing as well too is brand restrictions. I don't use this in search because I use negative keywords versus just adding a brand restriction. So anyways, we're gonna go to the next portion here, which goes into the keywords and ads. So the ad itself, and I'm like I said, this is gonna be another video, but the ad itself is a responsive search ad, and it rotates between all of these different. Now I always max these out, and kind of go from there. Now obviously, like I said, I'll talk more about this later, but just want to give you a quick overview that you want to try to have as many extensions, or I guess you could say assets, which is like your business name and logo, images, site links, call out links, all that kind of stuff filled out, so then you have as many spaces as possible inside of your actual search campaign. As for keywords, now this is going to be a case-by-case basis. When you're targeting keywords, I like to target keywords based on theme per ad group. So if you have, like, for example, I don't know, like chiropractors, let's say, and you have one campaign that's chiropractors, just says chiropractor, like one ad group that just has the keyword chiropractors in it, and then another ad group that's like chiropractors near me, best chiropractors near me, chiropractors in my area, like sort of themed ad groups that revolve around the keyword itself, are beneficial for quality score, but it's not one of those things to where SCAGs are dead, essentially, where you have a single keyword ad group, and yeah, that just doesn't work anymore, especially with the way that Google matches stuff. Themes are a lot better, so at least from what we've tested. So anyways, you're going to want to do that. I would like to stick to no more than 20 keywords. Keep it really simple. I also like to try to avoid exact match unless you know for sure that that is going to be your keyword that's going to win. The reason for that is because, number one, exact match is not necessarily exact match, so you can still get variations, and Google will charge you more for exact match versus if it was, for example, a broad keyword that picked up that same exact phrase. So it's really weird. I know it's just one of those things that Google does that I hate. So anyways, yeah, I'll be very careful when you use exact match. However, when you're adding negative keywords, always use exact match. Cool. So then we're gonna hit next, and then we'll go into the daily budget. So what I like to do, or at least the way that I like to test, is if a campaign is getting, let's say, 100 clicks a day, then I have a lot of data I can sift through, and I know exactly what's going on. I can take out those keywords. I can add in keywords like on a daily basis where we're doing great. We get a lot of data in. Now, if we're looking at a scenario where the clicks are super expensive, and we're talking like I don't know, like $100 a click, let's just say, then having a budget that's comparable to try to get you 100 clicks to then make a decision is the best case scenario. So it's kind of up to you as to what the timeline is for you. But I like to use 100 clicks as sort of the ratio to say, okay, this worked or this didn't work. And then kind of go from there. Now, obviously, it's based on research as well, too, but a lot of it's going to be geared towards the estimated CPCs. So typically speaking, though, $50 is pretty standard, or $100 is pretty standard to start with, especially if you're just wanting to break into the space and you got some money to spend and you already have a business that just needs to have gasoline thrown on the fire of it, kind of thing. Then you probably want to start with $50 or $100 to kind of test the waters and then see how you go from there. But if you're a lawyer, for example, or someone that does like an emergency service, your CPCs are going to be insanely high, so you're going to have to have a way higher budget than this to really be able to make changes like on a weekly or even bi-weekly basis, kind of thing, just because that's been there. So anyways, hope this kind of gives you guys a rough idea of how we like to run standard search campaigns. The next video, I'm going to talk more about ad copy and some things to look for, and sort of the value of pinning versus not pinning. So anyways, thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the next video.